We are ANN, and this is Planet Talk.
I put together an anthology of humorous quotes reference to the birth chart of the comedians and comedians called Stars of Comedy, and I decided not to publish it. Okay, so here the sun is the I am principle. It's the principle of selfhood. So with George Bernard Shaw was born with Mercury at the Sun-Saturn midpoint. So it ties together the Mercury and the sun. And so for him, the I am principle in this quote is sort of reflected or refracted through the Mercury principle of communication. So I often quote myself. It adds spice to my conversation. So you can see that sort of sun and Mercury. Now here's an example of Ashley Brilliant, was born with Sun semi-square Venus. This is another alignment. This is 45 degrees. Now these more minor ones have to be much tighter to be an orb. So about 2-degree orb on those. This is Ashley Brilliant. So this would be the sun sort of connected with Venus indulgences. Do your best to satisfy me. That's all I ask of everybody. And then, okay, and then the I am combined with Mars, strong. Some of us are becoming the men we wanted to marry. That's Gloria Steinem, Sun conjunct Mars. And then the sun, the I am principle combined with Jupiter, I am grandiose. If I only had a little humility, I'd be perfect. That's Ted Turner, Sun square Jupiter. So this is a fun way to use astrology, isn't it? Now the moon, the archetype of nurture, belonging, and connection. So we could say, well, the sun is the I am principle. The moon is either we are or I feel is another way to look at the moon. So I feel combined with Mercury, a need to be talked about. There is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. Oscar Wilde, Moon Square Mercury. And then again with the moon combined with Jupiter, I feel satisfied. Good friends, good books, and a sleepy conscience. This is the ideal of life. Mark Twain, Moon Square Jupiter. And then I feel combined with Uranus, I feel precocious. Grown-ups never understand anything for themselves, and it is tiresome for children to be always and forever explaining things to them. This is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Moon trine Uranus. These are all natal aspects. So can you kind of see how those work? You're kind of deadpan there, Elka, but I'll just assume you're smiling there, or at least relaxing in the background.
Yeah, no. It's very interesting. I'm listening. I was laughing, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now Mercury, the I communicate or I think archetype. Combined with Saturn, I think about problems. And this is if they liked you, they didn't applaud. They just let you live. That's Bob Hope, Mercury trine Saturn. This is a type of negative or deprecating humor. It's very common humorous style. And then Mercury combined with Neptune, I think about Neptune, the incredible. I can believe in anything provided that it is quite incredible. Oscar Wilde, Mercury trine Neptune. So this sort of ties in one of the shadow sides of Neptune, which is tendency to be spaced out or kind of leaving in transpersonal realms more than this realm, confusing the everyday world with all the other dimensions of consciousness. I think about combined with Pluto. Okay, well, you know what? I probably wouldn't read this out over the class. I haven't reviewed these in about 15 years, but I think you can handle this.
Okay.
So I think about with Pluto sex. In my sex fantasy, nobody ever loves me for my mind. That's Nora Ephron. So you can see this is she has Pluto at the Mercury-Neptune midpoint. So this little joke combines mind and also sex. So Mercury and Pluto. So you can see how that works. And I communicate, combined with Jupiter, righteousness. My opinions may have changed, but not the fact that I am right. Absolutely brilliant. Again. Jupiter equals Mercury, Neptune. So Venus, as you remember, is connected with love, beauty, harmony, and enjoyment. The I enjoy principle. So I enjoy, combined with Saturn, deprivation. Deprivation is for me what daffodils were for Wordsworth. That's Philip Larkin, Venus conjunct Saturn. Deprivation is for me what daffodils were for Wordsworth. He kind of enjoys solitude or deprivation connected with Saturn. Now, Venus, the I enjoy principle combined with Uranus, I enjoy freedom. I was in rare fettle and the heart had touched a new high. I don't know anything that braces one up like finding you haven't got to get married after all. T.G. Wodehouse, Venus conjunct Uranus. These English comedians are really out there. And then I enjoy, combined with Pluto, badness. The shadow side, Pluto. So happiness is a good martini, a good meal, a good cigar, and a good woman, or a bad woman, depending on how much happiness you can stand. George Burns, Venus opposition Pluto.
Oh, George Burns.
Cigar class.
Now Mars is connected with passion, desire, also assertion and anger. It also expresses itself in competition and sort of me first kind of feelings. So I am passionate about, with Mercury, my opinions. Marriage is a series of desperate arguments people feel passionately about. That's Katharine Hepburn, Mercury trine Mars. And then I'm passionate about, with Pluto, my power. I think sometimes the prime minister should be intimidating. There's not much point being a weak, floppy thing in the chair, is there? Margaret Thatcher. Mars or Pluto. Now Jupiter, in comedy, Jupiter brings elements of quantity, amplification, and the potential for excess. So we could say, I glorify. That's one of the qualities of Jupiter. I glorify the sun's selfhood. My only regret in the theater is that I could never sit out front and watch me. John Barry, Sun Square Jupiter. That's I believe he's maybe the great uncle of Drew Barrymore. Could be her grandfather, I'm not sure. Or maybe great. Then Jupiter, I glorify, combined with Venus, I glorify aesthetics. I didn't get dressed like this to go unnoticed. Venus, yes. Jupiter. You can see the sort of outrageous costuming and theatrics of the Venus Jupiter. He actually Venus Jupiter combined with Pluto. I believe it's a triple conjunction. But I've got this cool dude, of course. So you can see this sort of titanic, grandiose aesthetic of someone like Liberace. Yeah. You know, someone else that has the Venus Jupiter Pluto, for sure. In her case, it's a triple conjunction. Is Beyonce. Oh, this sort of
bigger than life,
sort of empowered Dionysian sort of grace and beauty, and the way she dances. If you've never seen, it's called "If You Want It, You Should Have Put a Ring on It." Do you know that song?
Yeah.
Have you ever watched that video? That's just wow. And so she has it in a perhaps less outrageous form than but just as even more powerful, like the real thing, you know. Jupiter, Pluto can be connected with feelings of kingship or queenship. You could see her as the kind of the beautiful queen archetype, kind of presiding over the popular culture in some ways. So Jupiter, I glorify with Mars war. And then this is a Gary Larson cartoon. It's excited generals pondering around a table. On the other hand, gentlemen, what if we gave a war and everybody came? That's Mars trine Jupiter. And then Jupiter is also, I grow through. Jupiter is connected with growth. I grow through Saturn's adversity. And this is Swami Beyondananda with Jupiter square Saturn. Do you all know him, Swami Beyondananda? He's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Life is like photography. You use the negative to develop. And no matter what adversity you face, be reassured. Of course, God loves you. He's just not ready to make a commitment. So that's a funny little bit with Jupiter combining with Saturn. I grow through adversity, Saturn. Okay, now Saturn, of course, is the archetype of contraction, structure, boundaries, and time. The forces of separation and differentiation in the universe. So the simplest way or the most concise way to describe Saturn could be problems. And the simplest way to describe Uranus could be solutions. So it's very interesting that Saturn-Uranus combinations often coincide with this interplay between problems and solutions. And it kind of goes back and forth like that. Uranus is ultimately a stronger archetype, though. So, you know, the ultimate problem for humans is our death, you know, our mortality. But Uranus represents that channel into the transpersonal realms where we can access the divine consciousness, which is eternal and infinite. And that is the resting place that our soul wants to reconnect with.
There is...
Oh, sorry.
There is some interference on the sound, so I don't know if Jemima, whether there is some kind of something in the background.
Whispering. That's whispering in the background there. They're just having fun there. I'm just going to mute you, Jamila. If you feel free to unmute yourself. They're just having fun.
It's just that it's the quality of the sound is affected by the background noise.
Too. Yeah. Okay, so Saturn's problems. So I have problems with Venus's beauty expectations combined with Venus. This is Germaine Greer with Saturn at the Venus-Pluto midpoint. Is it too much to ask that women be spared the daily struggle for superhuman beauty in order to offer it to the caresses of a subhumanly ugly mate? Pretty brutal, eh? You can hear the Venus-Saturn in there, and then Pluto adds this sort of intense, and she was probably joking, but, you know, Pluto sort of intensifies what it touches. So she's just talking about the unfairness of the beauty expectations. Saturn combined with Mars, I have problems with sports. I do not participate in any sport with ambulances at the bottom of a hill. That's Irma Bombeck, Mars opposition Saturn. and Saturn is boundaries, Mars is kind of force. So this sort of sense of collisions and falls and hitting things and so on. And then I have problems with Saturn, Uranus extremism. Uranus can have a fanatical quality. I've been married to one Marxist and one fascist, and neither one would take the garbage out. Lee Grant, Saturn trine Uranus. So Uranus is connected with liberation. I am liberated through Venus love. This one isn't the best, but it's curious how when you're in love, you yearn to go about doing acts of kindness to everybody. I am bursting with a sort of yeasty benevolence these days, like one of those chaps in Dickens. I very, very nearly bought you a tie in London, Bertie. That's P.G. Wodehouse again. Venus conjunct Uranus. One of those chaps in Dickens. And then Uranus again. I am liberated through Jupiter's perspective. One man's theology is another man's belly laugh. That's Robert Heinlein, the science fiction writer. Jupiter opposition Uranus. And then I am liberated through Saturn's maturity. When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could barely stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much he had learned in 7 years. That's Mark Twain's Saturn trine Uranus. So are you up for two more? Okay.
Yep.
Two more archetypes. So Neptune, I spiritualize. Neptune spiritualizes what it touches. So Jupiter's positive energy. Fundamentalists, he capitalizes the fun, F-U-N. Fundamentalists believe that life is fundamentally fun, that underneath all the stress, distress, and negativity, there is a deep well of joy. Each time laughter bubbles up from that well, we experience deep wellness. Swami beyond Ananda. Jupiter at the Venus-Neptune midpoint. Okay, Neptune combined with Uranus. I spiritualize Uranus rebellion. Every day people are straying away from the church and going back to God. Lenny Bruce, Uranus quincunx Neptune, that's 150 degrees. And again, the orb on that would be 2 degrees. So they have to be very tight and close. Neptune is also I confuse. Neptune can kind of blur distinctions of things. I confuse Mercury's mental clarity. Of all the things I've lost, I miss my mind the most. Ozzy Osbourne. Venus at the Mercury-Neptune midpoint, and that was attributed. So now Pluto, it's the shadow side of things, the underworld, among other things. It's the death rebirth struggle. It brings elements of intensity, depth, and shadow to any archetype it influences. So I experienced the shadow side of Venus attractiveness. It was a blonde to make a bishop kick a hole in a stained glass window. Raymond Chandler, Venus sextile Pluto. So that's kind of a femme fatale kind of reference there. Pluto, I experienced the shadow side of Mars passion. There is hardly anyone whose sexual life, if it were broadcast, would not fill the world at large with surprise and horror. That's W. Somerset Mom, Mars sextile Pluto. I'm glad to have a select audience here today. I probably would have edited out a lot of these. 15 years has gone by, feeling a little more cautious about things that might be construed as offensive, but I don't think that would be. And anyways, Pluto and I obsess with Mercury's opinions. A fanatic is one who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. Winston Churchill, Mercury opposition Pluto. That's pretty cool, eh? Yeah. I'm more of a fundamentalist, you know, the FUN kind, but quite a bit of Saturn too.